shut all of this down. The White House has the phone. They could just call me. Is it still? Yep, still working. They've got the phone number. Oh, I know they're watching today. They should call. You know what they should do? This is probably what they will do. They'll just attack me. They'll smear me. They'll say, whatever, whatever. But just answer the question. Phone's working. Call the red phone, White House. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do it? Could it be that you don't have any? Because they're not difficult to answer, these questions. Is it that it's true? Did you know this man was a criminal while he trained volunteers at Camp Obama? This, by the way, would be the second person who had done jail time that you've hired. Did you know that? Did you know about this book, or is it just amazing coincidence that you're following the prison plan to the letter? Is it just a coincidence that this guy shows up at a state dinner? You know, I'm pretty confident that the Secret Service knows this man's criminal background. The question is, why and who let him in? You see, I don't believe in coincidence. I don't think there's anything, but I mean, even if you do, is there any point to where the coincidence is just too much? It just doesn't fly anymore. I didn't know that my preacher was a Marxist. I sat in the pew for 20 years, but I had no idea. I didn't know my green job czar defended cop killers and was a communist, and he called himself a communist. I had no idea my science czar wanted to put sterilants in the drinking water and impose forced abortions. I didn't know that my communications director loved Chairman Mao. You know, and I had no idea this reality star wannabe crashing the state dinner. What? I didn't know a convicted felon, a progressive activist that wrote a book that is exactly the plan that I'm doing, and he wrote it in prison. I didn't know he was also at that dinner. Wow! Do you care to correct me? Would you like to? You can't. No jury in America would believe you. None. But, as they say, on television, but wait, there's more. Next. I've been telling you for a while now, you got to watch The Other Hand with these people in Washington. Thank goodness BigGovernment.com and Andrew Breitbart are always watching, as are we. Andrew called me yesterday and alerted me to this story. It just broke about, 5 minutes ago, 5 after the hour we started reporting it. Start your watches, see when the mainstream media actually covers this story. The rest of the world paying attention to the White House state dinner crashers, right? Woman in the red dress. The journalists apparently didn't feel it necessary to comb through the rest of the guest list. If they did, perhaps they would have noticed the convicted felon who was on the list. I just told you about that felon, Robert Creamer. I showed you his beliefs. He's a disciple of the radical Saul Alinsky. And that's not me saying that. That's him saying it here in his book that he wrote in prison, right here. And Obama seems to be following the guidelines of this book. It's hard to get this book. Yeah. It's difficult. I think all the copies are at the White House. Now, some will say, well, that's just a coincidence. Like I've said, really? So let's do a journalist's job for them, once again, since they're not doing it, and report on Creamer's history. See if any of this sounds familiar. Let's start with the convicted felon part. First of all, he was a lobbyist, executive director for Illinois Public Action Fund. Yeah, it's great. It's kind of like Acorn. He was later indicted in federal court on 16 counts of bank fraud in excess of $2 million. It is kind of like Acorn, isn't it? He pleaded guilty to 1 count of failure to collect withholding tax and bank fraud for writing checks with insufficient funds. In 2006, he was sentenced and served a 1.5 years in federal prison and house arrest. Got it? Yet another progressive who dedicates their life to forcing higher taxes on the people and then avoids paying them. Of course he's at the White House. And then a guy with such values and morals that he has no problem completely ripping off the nonprofit entity that he's working for. After jail, he went right back to work, though, for the progressive cause, working for the little people, i.e., the people he was stealing from. Was he shunned by his peers? No, quite the opposite. His consulting firm, Strategic Consulting Group, is on the rise and boasts an impressive roster of clients. Oh, you may have heard some of these names before. The AFL-CIO, the United Steelworkers Union of America, Acorn, and say it with me, SEIU. Isn't it weird? I mean, these were all the people that were trying to create jobs just last week at the Job Summit. I wonder if he knew. The book this guy wrote while on, as he calls it, forced sabbatical, I call it prison, he says, you know, he writes this, and it hasn't been mocked by other progressives. No, no, no. It's been endorsed. And let me give you some of the few glowing reviews. First of all, from Andy Stern, surprise, surprise, SEIU. He says the book will hopefully inspire more people to act, or write in prison, maybe. Then there's John Podesta. Hey, isn't this the guy who... Yes, I think Van Jones now works for John Podesta, Center of American Progress. He says the book is just straight up shot in the arm for progressives. Then there's the founder of MoveOn.org. They say it's an inspirational and serious tool for the progressive agenda. Arianna Huffington says the book will help return America to its progressive roots. I don't think they were. The member of the Congressional Black Caucus, we've got, or the Progressive Caucus, Congressman John Lewis. He says the book will help create our society's next historical movement. Then there's a member of the U.S. Subcommittee on Health, Congressman Lloyd Doggett. He says this book is a blueprint for victory. And last but not least, our very good friend on this program and longtime friend and top Obama advisor, David Axelrod. It's weird because he says almost the same thing the congressman just said. He says the book is a blueprint for future victories. David Axelrod, the prison plan is a blueprint? The one that seems to be using, the one that has all of the things that the White House has been doing to scare people into health care is a... Still believe in coincidences? Yeah. Didn't think so. Next. The danger of this. Next. Well, today, the two-week International Climate Change Summit in Copenhagen opened with a goal of curbing the amount of carbon dioxide that the biggest nations in the world produce. It hasn't really seemed to bother any of these email-happy climate scientists that the summit is going to produce itself some 40,000 tons of carbon as a result of this little get-together. This, according to the New York Post. They said that the amount is equal to the daily amount of carbon dioxide produced by 30 small nations in a year, just so they could gather and talk. British news reports that at least 140 private planes and more than 1,000 limos are making their own carbon footprint in Copenhagen. That's all happening this month. I'm not sure, but I don't think that's eco-friendly. Perhaps the global warming alarmists should use the internet. You know, that thing that Al Gore invented, or conference callers. Oh no, White House doesn't seem to know how to use a phone. So maybe they should fly over. I want to play some video for you, and I want to warn you right now. When I first saw these, they are extraordinarily disturbing. At least they were for me. If you have children in the room, I would suggest that you have them leave at this point. Pause it and then start it when they're gone. I want to show you a video that the left is running, and you tell me, does this look like scare tactics